This week on Ask Dan, I take a lot of questions on the Lumia 950, 950 XL, talk a little bit about Project Islandwood, and do I drink whiskey before I read the comments on Windows Central? The answers may surprise you. Stay tuned. Do you think that Microsoft should have rebranded the Lumia devices, at least when it comes to models like the 640, the upcoming 950, and 550? So this question comes up a lot, and I do agree, it's sort of confusing. Now back in the day, we had a 600 series, 700 series, 800, and so forth, and it kind of made sense having all those different model numbers. However, Microsoft is consolidating. We already saw this with the Lumia 640. For instance, they had a 640 XL. Technically, that would have been a Lumia 1330 by the old rule. So they are consolidating a bit, but now you have some arbitrary gaps between a 600 series, 700, and so forth. So yeah, I do think 950, 950 XL, it's okay, but I do think in the long term they should rethink about this. If you look at Samsung, for instance, they have the Galaxy S series. HTC has the HTC One, and then they broke it down with the M8 and M9. And then you look at Apple, they have the iPhone 6 and 6 Plus. So yeah, there's definitely precedent here for doing that kind of thing. And I do think Microsoft should think about rebranding some of their Lumia line. There's much talk of Astoria in the Windows Phone community, but almost none of Islandwood. Why? Okay, so this question is in regards to the bridge projects that Microsoft has. There's Islandwood, there's Astoria, and Centennial. Centennial is going to be for Windows 32 apps, so you can actually port full-on desktop apps into the Windows Store. It's going to be really awesome. So why aren't we hearing more about that and say Islandwood? It's actually a pretty simple answer to this, which is it's not ready yet. So Centennial comes out later next year, actually early next year, I should say. Islandwood, I would expect later this year. And of course, Astoria is basically out now. Now it's out in a preview form. You still need to enroll and able to do it, although of course those tools leaked. And that's sort of the second answer to this question, which is the tools leaked for Android, so it's being talked about more. I imagine towards the end of the year though, we'll hear more about Islandwood, and then starting early next year, we'll hear about Centennial. This Windows 10 thing is a very long project for Microsoft, so you have to think over the next 6 to 12 months, not necessarily the next 3, but there you go. Has it gotten to the point where you pour yourself a large whiskey before reading through the comments on Windows Central? Short answer, yes. Is it still the case that the blue color option for the Lumia 950, 950 XL is for prototypes only? And if so, why? So when we first talked about the Lumia 950, 950 XL and we reported some exclusive information, we said it was only white and black and it was going to be a matte color. And since then, EV Leaks basically said it also comes in blue. Technically it's true, but yeah, it's only for prototypes. Now, this information could change, but from what I've been told, that was only a prototype version, and the actual ones that go to retail will be white or black. Now, a little word of caution here. Things can change. We're not following day to day what's actually going in on Microsoft. Switching out the rear cover for these devices is actually easy. That's the whole point of them, right? The cover comes off and you can put a new one on. In theory, Microsoft could actually release a bunch of colors. Now, I haven't heard that's what they're doing, but just because I haven't heard something doesn't mean it's not happening. And don't forget, this actually could change at the last minute. Although the design of these devices is locked, something like changing the back cover or changing the color could be done pretty late into the process. So fingers crossed that they will offer some color versions when they do finally come out. Now, in case you're wondering why they're not seemingly offering various colors, I think they're returning to a more conservative route here. Although I think a lot of people liked Lumias with the various colors, I myself rock a green Lumia 1520, I don't think consumers have necessarily responded to it in the market, and instead they're returning to the classic white and black. But there may be some room there. I would love to see this new Windows 10 blue color happen on a Lumia phone, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Have you secretly given up on Windows Phone? Or are you playing to or mirroring the Windows Phone crowd? I only ask because its cynicism, albeit slight, is noticeable. One of the more interesting aspects of my job is I hear all sorts of claims. One, I'm a huge Windows Phone fanboy and I'm completely biased against Microsoft. And of course from the other end, which is I have given up on Windows Phone. No, I have not given up on Windows Phone. Actually, I do use a green Lumia 1520 on AT&T with Windows 10 Mobile. But here's the important thing. I actually have multiple lines. I actually have 2 on AT&T, 2 on Verizon, and I even have a Ting, I believe. And I have a T-Mobile one, which I don't actually use anymore, basically because I just don't get service around here. So I actually carry numerous phones around with me at once. I do have my Lumia 1520 as my main phone on AT&T, but I also swap that out with a Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge, sometimes an iPhone 6, which I use on Verizon, and I also use various other devices like a Lumia 640, which I have on Cricket. So I do carry around a lot of phones. It's a little hard for me to answer that question. Sometimes people see me using a Samsung or an iPhone, but it doesn't mean that's my only phone. I actually do carry around 3 to 4 phones at a time sometimes. So no, I've not given up on Windows Phone. I still believe in it. Does CityMan TalkMan satisfy your flagship wishes, or should we hold out for the Surface phone? So 2 parts of this question, which is, am I happy with what I know so far of the CityMan and TalkMan phones? And this is actually kind of difficult to answer. I've seen specs, I've seen photos, I've talked to people who actually use these devices. And so part of me is actually very excited, but without having to hold it and use it myself, I don't really want to form a judgment right now. I do agree with some of the criticism. I myself would have liked, say, a metal phone. So if you look at McLaren, the phone that was canceled, that eventually did leak out, and it actually looked pretty great with that all-metal body. And yeah, I prefer that sort of design to, say, an all-polycarbonate. But then again, I do like, say, the Lumia 830 design, and even the 735 is actually one of my favorite phones. So I don't really want to pass judgment just yet. The second half of that question is regards to the Surface phone. Now, this is not even... I don't know what to say about the Surface phone. It's not actually called a Surface phone. I've heard it may be called that, but that's even unconfirmed at this point. This is in regards to the Intel device that Microsoft is working on. It's supposed to be coming out, I hear, around May of next year. So the question is, a lot of people has is, should you wait for that one? I don't know much about this device. Actually, I don't know anyone that really does at this point. So it's hard to actually have any opinions on it. Sure, it may rock an x86 processor, but what about the camera? Does it have Qi wireless charging? What about an iris scanner? We actually don't know at this point. My belief is that these phones are going to be geared towards enterprise, and because of that, they're going to have to cut corners to reduce the cost. You want a premium phone you can sell to businesses, but you don't want to have all the bells and whistles. For instance, if you're buying out like 100 of these or 500 of these for your company, do you really need them to have, say, a 20 or 25 megapixel camera? Sure, it'd be nice. Is it needed? Probably not. And so that is one area where they could cut back, because they still can offer a premium device, but it won't be totally expensive. Now, until we find out more about this Surface phone or Intel phone or whatever you want to call it, I don't know if I would get my hopes up that high for it. So I do think if you need a flagship and you need it this fall, you're going to want to go with the Lumia 950 or 950 XL. And you just have to take the risk. But I'm not expecting the Surface phone necessarily to outdo whatever the 950 or 950 XL is. I think it'll have some advantages to it, but there's a lot more questions here than we know the answers to. And for all we know, that phone might not even come to market. So, like I said, there's a lot of time left to decide. But no, I haven't actually decided on which one is better yet. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? This is actually my old friend Daniel Gary, a developer of Windows Phone, obviously having some fun here. Of course, I do have an answer. It's Windows 10, because Windows 10 runs everywhere. Do you think that the device that is in the latest Microsoft video is the Surface Pro 4? Short answer is no, but I want to sort of address a bigger thing. We get this a lot, which is a new commercial comes out, and sometimes there's a phone in there or a tablet or computer, and people think, oh my God, is that this? And, you know, this being the next leaked device. All I can say is these companies do not put unannounced products into commercials and sort of slip them in there. Let's take, for instance, the Surface Pro 4. Now, I know this device exists, but one thing about the Surface team, they're extremely secretive. So much so, these devices do not actually leave the campus. In the very late stages of development, some people on the team can actually sign out these devices, but it is very tightly controlled. The notion that the next generation, say, Surface tablet or even flagship phone, manages to go to a movie set or a commercial set and be shot and just secretly in there is pretty far-fetched. And so I appreciate all the comments and conspiracy theory articles where little lines are drawn and arrows and people are measuring things on the display. I'm afraid there's nothing much to see here. Now, having said that, I do think the Surface Pro 4, or at least a 12-inch version, will look very much like the Surface Pro 3. I'm expecting mostly hardware internals basically changing, but not necessarily the exterior. But no, don't look into commercials commercials too much for new products. I think Microsoft will announce these when they're ready to announce them. So that does it for this week's episode. Remember, you can submit your questions using hashtag AskDanWindows on Twitter, and now you can use our new email address at askdan@windowscentral.com. So send in those questions and maybe we'll pick yours. Thanks for watching. Take care, everybody.